So we're now going over to Professor Wolfram Herrmann, who's going to tell us about an EU study that really could change the face of our knowledge about social prescribing. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great round here and great inspiration. I'm very happy now to bring another point into the field, into the game with research for evidence. And my name is Wolfram Herrmann. I'm professor at Charité in Berlin, and I'm very happy to lead a European research project on social prescribing to promote and improve access to health and care services for people in vulnerable situations in Europe, which is funded by the European Union and Horizon Europe funding. And I will present you briefly what we are going to do and what we already started from 2025 to 2029. It's running. So on the next slide, we can see the starting point for our research project, because despite the widespread implementation of social prescribing, as we heard today, there are still many evidence gaps. And one is there's a lack of rigorous randomized controlled trials where we really have control groups of patients who do not get social prescribing, and they are randomized in either of these two groups to see the effects of social prescribing. Then a second step is that because social prescribing originated in the UK, the studies we have, especially the trials, are mainly from the UK. And so it's more difficult to draw conclusions for other states and other healthcare systems. And to date, we don't have any multinational trials, including more than one country into the trial, which would, of course, be also better for better evidence. And last but not least, we have a limited understanding how social prescribing works for people in vulnerable situations, if it still can reach them very well, those who need it maybe most. So on the next slide, you can see our graphical abstract of our large European project. On the left side, you can see that we focus on three groups of people in vulnerable situations. The first one are LGBTIQ persons, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, inter, and queer persons. The second group are refugees and first-generation immigrants. And the third group are older adults living alone. And all these three groups have in common that they have a higher risk for social problems such as loneliness, and they all are prone to not reaching the services in the community they need. And these both risks combine them to be people in vulnerable situations here. And we have four main streams or pillars in our project. And in the first one, in the co-creation project, we are going to adapt social prescribing together with representatives of these three groups to their needs. And then in the heart of the project, the randomized control trial, we are going to have a traditional social prescribing model with the GP referring to a link worker who has then usually up to 5 consultations with the patient and then links them to the supports and services in the community. And we will do a randomized control trial on this adapted social prescribing for these three groups. Additionally, we'll have a comparative qualitative study where we're going to look at barriers and facilitators to the implementation of social prescribing in European countries. And last but not least, we have dissemination, exploitation, and communication stream, where we are going to want to communicate with the public and also policymakers about the project. And you can see in red and orange what our middle and long-term goals are. So in the short term or middle term, we want to improve access to health and care systems for people in vulnerable situations by social prescribing. And we hope it's going to be effective and also economically sustainable. And on the long run with this, we want to contribute to a fair access and sustainable high-quality healthcare in our healthcare systems, and also social prescribing to transform healthcare systems to community-based, people-centered, and integrated healthcare. So big long-term goals, and we hope with our project we can have a small contribution to these long-term goals. And on the next slide, you can see our main objectives. So as I said, our vision is that social prescribing can improve access to health and care services for people in vulnerable situations. And for each of these streams, we have specific objectives. So first, we want to design and implement social prescribing to the needs of these three groups. Then we want to show the effectiveness in the RCT. We want to look for barriers and facilitators to the implementation. And last but not least, we want to have a good communication with the public. And now in the time we've left, I want to go a bit more deeper into these 4 pillars to give you a better understanding what we're going to do. So on the next slide, you can see the next slide you can see here. And if you click one more, you can see who is part of the next, you can see who's all part in this project. So we are 22 partners, it's quite big. And of other European countries, we have people in the implementation board to reach as many European countries as possible to achieve our goals. And then on the next slide, we have the co-creation process, which we are just in the middle of it. So we started with talking in groups with LGBT persons, refugees, and first-generation immigrants, and all the adults living alone about their needs regarding social prescribing, and we designed case vignettes or personas to embody them. And parallel in Lisbon, the colleagues reviewed social prescribing manuals and protocols for the core measures for in social prescribing. And then what we're doing at the moment, we bring together these personas and the reviewed materials in 2 rounds of workshops with representatives of these groups and GPs to discuss how has social prescribing to be adapted so it works for these 3 groups. And these suggestions then will come into a manual, and we will review them locally in 10 different hubs where we have each a local advisory board with representatives of each of these 3 groups and GPs, and we're going to discuss our suggestions, and then we will finally agree in a consensus conference on the adaptation and have a consented manual, which is then, of course, for everyone here in this group up to use when it's finally consented, we hope in the end of the year. Then on the next slide, you can see how such a co-creation process can look like. So that's we visited the colleagues in Aarhus in Denmark just in the beginning of June, and you can see here the workshop where Lene is explaining the social prescribing process. You might recognize the picture on the screen, and 3 groups, women from the Turkish community, Turkish-speaking community, Arabic-speaking community, and Somali-speaking community in Aarhus discussed how they would need social prescribing to be so it fits to their needs. And then, so that's the first pillar. The second pillar is on the next slide, then the largest one. It's the pragmatic RCT. As you can see, we want to include around 1,800 patients, 600 in each group. That's a lot. And that's going to be in 10 hubs in 8 different European countries. And there, the GPs will recruit patients if they are from one of these groups and have social problems. And then they will get a baseline interview with the study nurse and will be randomized either in the social prescribing arm or in the care as usual arm. And after 6 months and 12 months, we will measure how is the access to non-clinical supports and services in the community, but we will also look for quality of life, for capability and these aspects. And it's going to be very exciting and very interesting to see the results. Also, as you can see, it's going to take a bit of time until we're going to get them. The third pillar, then on the next slide. Oh, no, still here some more information on, if you're interested, on the RCT. It's a bit more technically. We're going also to publish the study protocol hopefully soon. So I hope that's going to be interesting for those who are more interested in research in you. And it's not so easy to get this type of study on the road. And here you can see the third pillar. It's a comparative qualitative study. We just heard that we need to learn from each other, and that's what we are going to do here. So we are in 5 different countries: Austria, Germany, Poland, Portugal, United Kingdom, which have different stages of implementation of social prescribing, from fully implemented to not implemented at all. And then we're going to talk with experts, which can also be patients, on what are barriers and what are facilitators to the implementation of social prescribing in their country. And we will analyze it comparatively and then have, for example, also a policy brief, which might be very interesting, hopefully, to those here in the audience today, which will then bring this information together and hopefully also help to implement social prescribing better in more countries. And last but not least, on the next slide, you can see our dissemination, exploitation, and communication chart. And I want to highlight a bit that we will have 7, or we plan to have 7 key exploitable results, which you can see here in the purple box. And we hope that all of these 7 results will be interesting for you here in the audience. So we don't want to work just for research, but we want to disseminate our results and want that our results can be exploited by you to achieve the key outcomes and especially the long-term impact, as I told you, we want to achieve in the end. And yeah, so that's my short presentation. On the last slide, you can see here the consortium meeting in Berlin this March. And I would like to point out our website, social-prescribing.eu, where you can find all information, all people involved, and you can also subscribe to the newsletter. And we'd be very happy to be in touch with you, to keep in touch with you, and especially as we want to have your input as well. And of course, we want to serve you with our results to disseminate and exploit all of these results. And I can see already that the link is in the chat. So thank you very much for the possibility to give this short presentation here. It's very